Podcast by Friday, episode 56. If SEO was as effective today as it was 10 years ago, everybody would be rich. Most of the things that we were taught about SEO were put out there by the search engines themselves to sell you more ads. Podcast by Friday with Bill Griggs and Kingsley Grant. We help people to create their minimal viable podcast by taking bold action to defeat procrastination and to get their voices heard.
I'm Kingsley Grant.
And I'm Bill Griggs.
And you're listening to
Podcast by Friday. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Podcast by Friday. I am Bill Griggs, and I'm here with my main man, Kingsley Grant. How are you today, Kingsley?
Hey, Bill. I'm doing just fine. Looking forward to doing this episode once again with you for our wonderful audience who is, I think, chomping at the bits to hear us break down another episode for them.
Yeah, this is the best day of my week when I get a chance to sit down and record an episode with you and talk about some of the cool things that we are learning and experiencing and sharing them with our audience.
Yeah, and especially today we're going to talk about how to get to your goals faster through podcasting. And as a blogger, I know that for you and I, one of the things that we love to see happen is how can we get to our end goal? How can we achieve the thing we're after quicker than normal? And so the whole idea of the speed, right? And so hopefully today we are able to kind of unpack that for our audience today.
Yeah, the cool thing about goals is it's an endpoint. A goal is someplace you're trying to get, and you can work your way backwards from a goal, which is really cool. You know, say, I need to be here, and I'm here. How will I get there? And you can look at your path backwards sometimes, and that will help. Or you can, set it, because if you're trying to get somewhere and you can't envision the path ahead of time, then it's very difficult to get there. So, anyway, that's one of the things I think about.
Yeah, I you know what happened. I guess all of us, yourself included. But I know that I've had some goals in my life where I'm going after, and sometimes I just find myself not making progress or fast enough, and I try to examine and see why am I not making the progress? What's going on here? And sometimes I give up. I give up because I just really can't make it happen. You know, I'll give you an example. When I was going back to school, that I was in my 40s at the time to get my master's degree. And that was a goal of mine from years and years ago, that I wanted to accomplish this goal because for me it was a big thing. And I would be the first person in my family to have a master's degree. Mm-hmm. I'll be the first person to have completed college. And so that was one of the driving factors behind this goal of mine. But not only that, even though my dad had died many years past, it was something he was very big on education. And yet that voice of, Kingsley, get a good education, get a good son, whatever you do in life, make sure you have a good education, whatever good meant for him. But that's what's the point behind that. But it took me 3 years, Bill, and I felt like I was failing at this because I could not get it together. And, my fears was like, I'm too old and to go back to school. And what if I fail? What if now at this age and I should have gotten my life together, people are thinking, look at him. And so I had that working in my head. Mm-hmm. And just all that was going on. And you know what? I felt like I would never achieve that goal. I felt like I would never be able to make it happen. And when I look back, yes, I was able to do that eventually. But when I look back, I'm thinking maybe what I know now, had I had the right person in my life, a coach or a mentor or somebody who could really help me to come alongside and help me, I probably would have gotten that goal accomplished faster and got my degree out of the way much faster than I did. but I have learned some very valuable lessons about setting goals from that one event that I believe I could, as we unpack this podcast today, will be helpful to kind of speak from a personal experience and what I went through that I just don't want another person to go through.
You know what? We all fail at our goals, and it's what we do that to affect that failure, to learn from it, to overcome it, and to eventually succeed. That is important for us. Everybody's going to fail at something. I just recently failed.
Mm-hmm.
I took the One Funnel Away challenge, and my goal was to launch, design and launch a funnel in 30 days, and I didn't do it. I got started. I got very far into the progress, the progress of the thing and the process, and I was, about 2/3 of the way through it, but I couldn't reach my goal of getting it done in 30 days. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. Because, is it my fault that I didn't reach the 30 days? Maybe. Probably, most likely, it's my fault because I'm ultimately in charge of where I get, the destination that I reach by the actions that I take. But the cool part about failure is I found one way that didn't work for me. And so I can stop my progress there, or I can go from the point I'm at and try a different way to get it to the point where I want to get. And if that one fails, what will I do? Will I reset? Will I go? Well, the point of the whole matter is failure is a great teacher. Failure is a fantastic teacher. It will teach you more about you, your process, yourself, and anything else than pretty much anything else. And so don't be afraid to fail. Everybody fails at something. You got to keep going, and I will succeed.
And sometimes, truly it's how it feels more than the reality. Mm-hmm. Because, here's what I found in looking back, even at my story I shared earlier, and just as you shared your story right now, that when we fail at the attempt, the effort we're making to achieve a goal, one of those things it tells me is I'm in the game. If I was not in the game, I would not have experienced that. So it's really a feedback. And so we experience that sometimes in our lives. And even as you're listening today and you're saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, I can relate to that because I've also tried and made an effort to do certain things. And, my blog has lost its appeal. And that's not, you have no control over that part of it. It's not as popular. You have no control over that. The consumers do. So many times we look at our failures and we kind of beat ourselves up and we come hard on ourselves. But there are some things we just cannot control that in the environment, so to speak. We have to find a way to kind of work around, work through, work over, work under that to get to where we want to go. So as you described, it's true, Bill, that sometimes we're harder on ourselves than we ought to be if we can only look at failure that says we're in the game, and now how do we reset and relaunch?
Yep. When you think about it, as you get doing things, you said your blog wasn't as appealing to you, as it was as a medium. Well, how will you deal with that? Will you go out and make it more appealing, or will you find a different vehicle to get your message out? And that's very, very important what you decide. But I find many times that part of your reason for not having, maybe your blog being quite as appealing to you is that you don't have the funds to put behind it in order to move it forward. Because sometimes it can be expensive blogging to get your message out in front of other people. So, if you don't have a lot of money to throw at it, it can be hard for the average guy just to compete against somebody like Huffington Post or NPR or the New York Times. You're just a single voice out in the wilderness, and it's really not your fault because you haven't got the resources that you need to go forward.
And it's true, Bill, that it's also the monetary aspect, but sometimes it's the people resource, right? So when we don't have those things, obviously when we experience that quote and unquote failure, we can say, you know what, we're in our mind comparing, oh, well, if I only had the money. Well, yeah, it's true. So we're just simply saying that maybe the reason why you experienced that, hit that wall, like I mentioned earlier, if I didn't have the people resource around me to help me with my decision making to get to where I was going to go. So if I look at that and think, you know what, Kingsley, that's true. Don't be so hard. You know what, Bill, that's true. Don't be so hard, because that is part of what are the contributing factors you really have no control over. Mm-hmm. And so here's what happens now is then we may also begin to experience at this point some newfound fears that having gone through it, man, it's not going to work. This is not going to work. And so that now becomes another demon we have to fight and get past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll tell you, fear is the most powerful force against moving forward than that probably any single other thing. People are afraid to try, and if you think it won't work for you, then you might be right. But if you turn it around and think, well, I'm afraid this won't work if I do it that way, how else can I do it? Maybe you've got a shot. Mm-hmm. And so don't let the fear get at you, because we're all afraid of something. Yeah, I'm afraid of bees. Has nothing to do with podcasting, but I am afraid of bees. Do I let that stop me going out and walking out in the yard? Not generally. If I see a bee, I'm going somewhere else. But there's
you
other
would have
ways
to
to
do
get
well
it done.
in my backyard, Bill, because I was there just this morning looking at my plant, and there was this bee on the plant, just trying to get the pollen off of the flower, and just right there, I was looking at the plant to see if there's any insect like this caterpillar to kill them so they don't eat the plant down. And the bee just came right there. I wonder what you would do if that bee had come so close to your face.
Yeah, I don't want to ruin the folks' ears with my my girlish scream as I run from the scene. Because I can assure you, the moment that bee arrives, one of the two of us would no longer be there. I'd be finding another solution for that problem that day.
And is that the same idea of a blogger who have had an experience of some kind and the failure, whatever happened, and now that's being played in their current situation because now, okay, it just won't work because it didn't work in the past. Mm-hmm. But I like what you're saying. It could be, how could you figure a way that might not have worked that way, but is there and could there be another way that it could work? Mm-hmm. But I like what you have said in the past, Bill, and maybe it might be good to kind of say it here, how you look at fear. And I think you said something like fear is more like it's not real, something of that kind.
Oh, yeah. Will Smith has done a lot of movies. Will Smith, anybody by any stretch of the imagination would know that Will Smith, the actor, is a very successful actor. Yes. And he's had some movies that have come out that have not been box office successes. And one of the ones that he did a movie with his son. I think it was Back to Earth or something like that was the name of it. Some other sci-fi fan out there will remember the name of the movie and correct us, I'm sure. But there was a sentence in there where Will is talking about fear, and he said, fear is not real. You know, fear is a emotion. It's a choice. You know, he says danger is real, but fear is not real. Fear is a signal. It's a something to tell you that something has changed in your environment and that you need to address it. You know, that's what fear is about. So you can choose to be afraid, or you can choose not to be.
It's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the movie is it After Earth?
After Earth. There we go. I knew it had some Earth in the title. Yeah.
You're close.
Yeah. Normally, on a normal day, if you teed me up a little earlier on that, I would have figured out the name of it. But yeah, you know.
No, but that's true. That's good, though, because I think sometimes what you just said, the point is that it's not real. It's just really, you know, I think someone says fear is false evidences appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, false evidence is appearing real. But here's what I find that also gets in the way, Bill, because sometimes we're competing in ourselves and thinking that we'll be just seen like others who may have tried and didn't succeed. It didn't happen for them. Why is it going to happen for me? And we can underestimate. But remember, you have been blogging for quite some time. You have been at this. And the reason why you've stayed the course, because you have a story, you have something you want to get out. And yes, there's a chance it may not work because others may not have experienced something that worked. But what if it works? What if what you're doing is worked? And not only that, but if you don't try, like Bill just said, you'll never know whether it's going to work or not. And that's why we're suggesting the idea of getting to podcasting, because we can, of course, help you. And through our different shows, you can go back and see what we have said about this, how you can really make it happen. So you have the resources that we are here as one of the resources you can use to help you in this regards when you hit this wall of thinking that, I'm just going to be seen like everybody else who have tried and it didn't happen to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our whole thing is about getting you to go from blogging to podcasting. It's not an either or choice. You can still blog if that's what you like doing, but podcasting is a way that you can expand your reach and get your voice heard. I know you're probably sitting there saying, "Oh man, Bill is just trying to sell me on becoming a podcaster." I know you're suspicious of what I'm saying right now because you're a blogger. You're happy blogging at the moment, but something's not right, or else you wouldn't be listening to this show. Okay, let's get it out there. Yes, we are trying to convince you that podcasting may have a huge impact on your reach in addition to your blogging. So I'm just going to confirm that right now for you, that this is exactly what we're telling you. We've had a massive change in our reach, our scope, our popularity, the growth of our Facebook groups, from adding podcasting to our group of weapons. And you know what? This podcasting might just be one of our secret weapons. So
yeah, and I think the whole skepticism that comes with it, because I understand it. I remember that when I first was transitioning, not leaving blogging altogether, but to add podcasts into my repertoire of what weapons, as you described, to get my message out there and reach a wider audience faster and all those different things. It's like we have a safety net or have a safe place to stand called blogging. And then you're asking me to take this leap to podcasting What if I jump and when I land, it doesn't hold me up? What if it doesn't work? All that kind of stuff that goes through our mind. And I get it because I had that skepticism myself when I first started. And part of that was a fear of, was behind that. It's not just that the leap may not be, may not land properly or firmly, but it's almost like what other parts of that, what might people think, how may they look at me? And it's all the what if questions that were behind it that was also added into my skepticism. So if you're feeling skeptical of our suggestion that how to move quickly from blogging, and again, as Bill said, it's not giving up, it's simply the both and. But how to add podcasts into your weapon, your tools, your secret powerful weapons to reach an audience. If you're feeling that, it's understandable. As a matter of fact, I applaud you to even feeling some skepticism because it tells me that you are very thoughtful, methodical, and you're going to crush this thing, but you want to know. And that's what we're here to help you to make that leap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you continue to do what you've been doing and you expect to get different results, it's insanity. I'm paraphrasing Albert Einstein's quote, to do, if you continue to do the same thing and expect different results, it's insanity. Well, anyway, if you don't try something new every once in a while, you're going to find that you stagnate. And, we're here to help you make rapid changes that have massive results very quickly. And, that's our whole thing. We teach you to put together your minimum viable podcast so that you can get your voice heard, so that you can defeat procrastination sitting there dithering. Oh, I don't know if I should do this. I don't know. What was me? Yes, do this. We're not just trying to sell you, our product. It would be very great if you bought our products when they're available, but that's not our entire point. We are trying to help you make the changes that we've made, that we've seen success with. And you know what? If you're buying something from us or listening to an episode from us, moves the needle for you and gets you that much closer to your goal, what are you waiting for? I just don't know.
And, here's what also I find that gets in the way, that maybe, and I get it as a blogger, you have been so indoctrinated about blogging is the only way for you to get found and, for people to search and find your information. And so that may be playing a part where your beliefs is so entrenched in what you've been told and what someone have fed you. And some people out there still today who want you to still remain and buy their products, and they keep on pushing because that's all they know. And so they can't give you, and they will shoot down podcasting and badmouth and kind of talk it down because they're, again, listen to people who are doing it. So I get it if you are stuck with what someone have fed into your mind, that blogging is the way. I spoke to someone a few months ago, and this person have no idea about podcasting and other avenues of getting their message out there, an ebook or, for example, a video and so on. And they're saying, oh, I'm going to start a website and, and start my blogging because somebody got into their head first and tell them that's what they need to do. When I try to explain that it's not and just that, there's other ways, it's almost like, yeah, but that's not what I was told. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's what you're struggling with as well.
Yeah. Oh, man. Kingsley, I was, just before we got started, I was going through my email for my website, for my podcast. And, I was looking through the email, and I don't like to look through my email very often because it's mostly spam. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the spam that it consists of, now I've got blogs, I've got a couple of blogs, I've got a couple of podcasts, I've got a couple of websites, and it's all from people who are trying to sell me on SEO for my website. That's search engine optimization, for those who don't know. So, how to get better Google search results, how to go down
on the first page
of
Google.
Get on the first page of Google. Your web, your blog is boring. We can juice that up. And you know what? If SEO was as effective today as it was 10 years ago, everybody would be rich, because we all know that you're supposed to have keywords and you're supposed to have topics and things and all these things that we're supposed to do to rank higher in the Google search engine. But you know what? Most of those things that we were taught about SEO, not CEO. CEOs are different people. Most of the things that we were taught about SEO were put out there by the search engines themselves to sell you more ads. And, not necessarily to make your ads more effective, but to have you buying more ads and more keywords. You think about that for a second, and you tell me if that's not true.
I think it's right on point, Bill. And what I find is, in addition to that, I remember this person who I don't no longer see him. He disappeared, but he was for a few months hot on, you don't need a website. You don't need podcasting. All you need is to go on social media, and that's where you're going to generate what income and influence and all those different things, because that's where it's at. And he was selling that idea up and right and left. I mean, that's all he was doing. And people were buying. It was very convincing, right? Very convincing. It almost got me, but good thing I had a check. But the social media aspect, especially Facebook, he said that's where people are already hanging out. Why go and do a website or a blog? Why, do a podcast? Why not just be there and use that? And I get part of that message, but people like that are not going to give you the full picture, because they want you to zero in on their message and buy from them. And then, like I said, I'm not seeing this guy around. Just now that I'm speaking about this, I'm thinking, wait a minute, where did he go? I don't even see his name anymore across my radar. So who knows? And so those are that kind of people who will try to tell you that, and you might also get stuck there. So remember this: we're simply saying we want you to have much farther, a broader reach. We want you to get your message out there faster. And we're speaking from, like Bill said earlier, we're not trying to sell you a product and say, hey, this is the reason why we're doing this show. No, we want you to experience what we know works. And you will be able to tell us that, you know what, once I've done it, you guys were right.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you mentioned the social media and everything. I'm on Facebook most of the day because I have a large group on Facebook and I have several things going on. And, when I'll post something on Facebook on my personal timeline to my friends, not to the folks who are in the audience, or whatever. But when I'll post something up there, and it'll be a week later, and I'll see one of my friends who I know is on my timeline, and I'll mention, hey, did you see this thing that I put up about the Easter pageant they're having, or about the whatever, and I'll say, no, I didn't see that. And it's because of the way that Facebook, and I'm not picking on Facebook because they all do this. They're in their businesses. We have to remember that. They set up things that they're going to do to make them the most money. Facebook chooses who they send your post to, who gets to see it, and for how long. Your post can disappear in seconds in this huge torrent of social media that's coming along. Forget Twitter. I mean, Twitter is
please.
Millions and millions of tweets that boom, 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 they're going. And if you expect somebody to see your message coming out of those huge fire hoses of streams, you're you're going to have a rough time doing that. But like if you have a podcast episode out there, the podcast episode goes so many different places. It goes to iTunes, it goes to SoundCloud and Stitcher and Spreaker and Anchor FM and all of these places, and it stays there, and it has great SEO, believe it or not.
Yes,
because it's an evergreen thing that's going to be there long after you record it, and that is the thing. Your blog post will be there as well, but it doesn't have the reach that a podcast episode does. This is the section of our show where we would normally pause for a word from our sponsor. Now, if you would like to be the sponsor of the Podcast by Friday show, and you have a product or service that you feel would be of benefit to new entrepreneurs starting their new podcast, then contact us at podcast@podcastbyfriday.com, and we'll see if you'd be a good fit. It's an evergreen thing that's going to be there long after you record it, and that is the thing. Your blog post will be there as well, but it doesn't have the reach that a podcast episode does.
And it doesn't give the people who are consuming content that option which they prefer to consume it in, and that's the audio. And that's what podcasting does. I have a new book that I'm releasing soon, and I was speaking to someone last Monday, and the very first thing he said to me after I talked about my book, he said, "Kingsley, do you have an audio book with that?" And, I said, "Well, I'm working on that." He said, "Man, all of my books I have consumed, read, majority have come through audiobooks." And he said, "I admire the fact you're going to have a print book available. I admire the fact it's going to be on Kindle, but I'll wait until it's on audio." Why? He can move and listen to the whole book and consume it faster, get that information downloaded very fast, and have access to the information rather than having to sit down, look at a blog on his phone or laptop or wherever, and have to be subjected to having to do it then. Yes, it's on his own time, but what if he or she wants to be moving around like this guy? Then that's why I believe podcasting becomes the thing you must include as part of the way to get your content out. And the goal of getting to whatever it is you want, whether it's your message being heard, which is part of that, more influence, the possibility of making more money, all those things. I believe that podcasting becomes that vehicle, becomes that choice that will get you that goal faster. And basically, you are going to have people get what they want the way they want it, rather than what you want them to have, which is must be blog. No, those days are over.
Mm-hmm. When I was blogging really heavily when I got started about almost 10 years ago now, I think, when I started blogging, they had come up with, content marketing, blogging, basically telling people about a blog post and selling some product off of a blog post. And people built up entire businesses around that concept, having affiliate relationships and whatever. And, the SEO was built up, and, it all combined to make this thing. Hey, my blog post is going to make me money. And then one day Google came along and went, slapped them. Google slap with the penguin algorithm, where they said, "Nope, we're changing the rules. We're no
just
longer
like that.
Oh yeah, just like that. We're no longer going to let you get your attention by buying the keyword that will get you to the top of this page, that will allow folks to do things. If you're just going to be advertising to people, empty content, you've got to have substantive content that actually does something, with pictures that lead people places, that they can actually accomplish something. And that's the new model that we're going for. Well, when Google was able to do that, and it's not just Google, but Twitter's done the same thing, and Facebook has done the same thing. When they controlled that they actually controlled your revenue. They controlled the way you could make business, and folks lost millions of dollars instantly. You know, they had gone from $1 million businesses to nothing businesses just because the rules changed. But with a podcast, that is not the case, because podcasts are out there and they are not based on those same metrics. In fact, podcasts are heating up right now, and advertisers are coming over to podcasts in droves. You know, it's just something to consider. Having that control back over what your business fate is a real comfort to me.
You know, you mentioned that podcasting is where it's at. Just this morning, I was listening to the radio, just in passing, and they had a commercial that came on the radio about iHeartRadio. And this is how iHeartRadio said, "We are the #1 podcasting platform in the world." That's the way they presented that ad. I'm thinking, wow, doesn't iHeartRadio do other things as well? But they are positioning themselves as the #1 podcasting platform in the world, right? Which means to me that there's a heated competition of who can be positioned as a podcasting go-to platform. Why? Why is not as a blogging platform? Why isn't, because they know the shift is occurring and they've got to go. It's like where this guy who used to play hockey, Wayne Gretzky. Wayne
Gretzky, yeah.
Right. And they asked about, how did you know to get to where the putt is? He said, I would anticipate and get to where the putt is going to go before the putt gets there. That's right?
The puck.
The puck. I said the puck.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, right. But the idea is he wants to get where the puck is going to be before the puck gets there. And that's where I think right now, as we're trying to explain to you, we're suggesting get on board, get on this before the puck gets there. Because when it gets there and it's heated up, then, my friend, you might just get there a bit too late.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's amazing to me. If your goal is to get your blog to have a podcast to help it grow, if that is your goal, man, you've set a great goal, and you've set an achievable goal, and we can help you do that very quickly. It's not as hard as you think, because podcasting is such a fantastic medium. It is such a great vehicle to get what it is that you've got to say to the people who want to hear it. Okay, I can't think of any other medium that has this broad an appeal and cost as little to reach your audience as this. I mean, if you were doing Facebook ads, if you were doing any number of things, a Facebook ad, you might spend 8 cents or you might spend $8 to reach one person with your message and a Facebook ad. But with a podcast episode, you can reach thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people, depending on how you put it out there. And by the time you add up the costs involved to do that, you're like fractions and fractions of pennies, not dollars per person, but fractions of pennies to reach someone to get your message out. So, podcasting is an amazing method of reaching your audience.
And, as we kind of wind down here a bit, I think that when we first began, we start saying that getting to your goals faster through podcasting is the title of this episode. And I believe that, as a blogger, you're listening, I would say this is true of you as it's true of us. Your ultimate goal of blogging is basically to reach an audience. We're simply saying, if you want to rapidly grow your audience and increase your influence and monetize your work, then podcasting is the way to go. And we've kind of outlined for you the why and that you need to choose this method. And I guarantee that by doing so, you will set yourself up for greater influence, greater reach, and the possibility of greater monetization.
Mm-hmm. And, if we wanted to talk about a specific, I know we're winding down here, but I wanted to hammer this point home. As bloggers, we've always been concerned about SEO and about how we're going to reach more people. And one of the tools that you have available to you in your podcast episode is your show notes. Okay? A show note tells people what happened in your episode, but it can also be used as part of your there we go again.
Here we go again.
As part of your SEO. To build your SEO, because it's keyword rich. It has resources. It has links to the websites that you mentioned. It has, in some cases, transcriptions of your content already. It's like building a blog post for you automatically, depending on the service you use. We'll talk about Otter AI and a few other things like that later, or in another episode. That'll do this stuff for you on the fly. Take your audio and create text for it that you can use for things. So this is an amazing time to be around in this field, because there are so many new innovations coming to help make podcasting so much easier to get into and so much more effective. And, you think about the reach of iTunes, for instance, or you think about the reach of Stitcher or SoundCloud, all of those, huge platforms with, each segment of their listeners, and your podcast can be on all of them. It's just amazing. It's just amazing.
Yeah. So as we can wrap things up, and I want to call your attention to this idea of setting this as a goal. We did an episode sometime back, episode 32, that was entitled How to Achieve Your Goals and Goal Setting Tips, which I believe would be a great episode to listen to that could actually get you a little bit more deeper, because we just wanted to set the tone of why you want to choose podcasting to achieve your goals faster. But if you want to hear more about goals, as we described, then I want to suggest you go to podcastbyfriday.com/32. That's podcastbyfriday.com/32, how to achieve your goals and goal setting tips. That's where you can actually hear us go a bit deeper and do a deeper dive into goal setting. So that's what we want you to do as a result of listening to this episode today.
Yeah, in that episode, we tell you what a goal is and how to set them, and we show you how we do it and how we've done it for the past 5. I don't know if we've been together 5 years. We're getting close, anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Doing these episodes, how we go about setting it, and again, this is cool free content that's available to you that you can go and use to solve this issue today. Check it off your list. So I very much encourage you to go see podcastbyfriday.com/32, the number 3 and 2, 32, episode 32. And it'll teach you how to achieve your goals and give you some goal setting tips.
Well, we hope that you get some very helpful information from listening to this episode. And we appreciate it. I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us. You could have listened to any other podcasts. And just by being here, we truly appreciate that. It says a lot. And we want to also invite you to our page, our Facebook group. And you can find that at facebook.com/groups/podcastbyfriday. So you can be a part of that group as well. But don't forget, this is an episode we want you to listen to on goal setting. That's podcastbyfriday.com/32.
Fantastic. I really enjoyed getting a chance to speak to folks about how they could move their goals further along using a podcast today, Kingsley. I hope that this was helpful for everybody, and I'm glad that, we got the chance to talk about this.
It was helpful even for me to go back and revisit and some of this thought process as we flesh it out here. So I think, I know I benefited from just listening to you, your thought process, your stream of thinking, and just as I also kind of put mine out there, just the very fact to hear that, I think if it's beneficial just to us, to me, who have, been doing this for a while, I can't imagine what you as a listener, the blogger, how you're going to find this very helpful. And so thank you again for being with us today on Podcast by Friday.
All right, I'm Bill Griggs.
And I'm Kingsley Grant.
Thank you for listening to Podcast by Friday. Podcast by Friday. Take bold action to create your minimal viable podcast today. Check out new episodes at podcastbyfriday.com or on iTunes or Spreaker.